Stuff like this, your adrenaline, kicks in. Your nerve scales kick in.
A wrong-way crash on I-80 sent 2 people to the hospital and shut down the interstate. How the community came together to save a life.
A shelter for those who are medically vulnerable now with its first murder. I'm Amy Nay in Sandy, where police are investigating. I'll let you know what they have to say.
3 months ago, more than a dozen historic headstones were damaged at the Grantsville City Cemetery. How one family is celebrating this Memorial Day with the restoration of a piece of their history.
We're tracking a few isolated showers from the mountains across southern Utah on this holiday, what to expect through the rest of the week.
The seat that he was bolted to the floor in the airplane, he went right through the glass in the window.
And a Utah woman's husband was shot down while flying over Japan during World War II, and he survived. How she's reflecting on the ordeal this Memorial Day. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kelly Chapman. We begin by continuing to follow breaking news along I-80 just east of the Great Saltaire venue. The road right now is closed after a crash between a wrong-way driver and a truck pulling a horse trailer. Fox 13 News reporter Emily Tenser is live at the scene right now. Emily, what have you found out?
Kelly, my photojournalist and I were traveling westbound on I-80 and actually watched that crash happen. Now, at first, from far away, all we saw was a big cloud of dust, but as we got closer, we realized how serious of a crash that was. And that was around 2:50 today near mile marker 111 on our way to Tooele. Now, the community response was astounding. Everyone hopped out of their cars to make sure everybody was okay. A lot of people were calling 911 and bringing over towels and the clothes we had in our cars to stop the bleeding. Utah Highway Patrol says the car that was involved actually crashed twice. Take a listen to this latest update.
Vehicle ran off the road to the right and went through the deer fence and crashed. Multiple individuals stopped out with the vehicle to try to render aid and see what was going on. The driver of the vehicle then backed up and re-entered onto I-80 going wrong way and ultimately crashed head-on with another vehicle that was going westbound on I-80.
The driver of the convertible was breathing but was not conscious. He was flown to the hospital via medical helicopter. There were 2 people in the truck that was carrying that horse trailer, and we're told by Utah Highway Patrol that the passenger suffered minor injuries and they were also taken to the hospital as well. He gave us an update. There were about 4 or 5 animals in that trailer and none of them were injured. They're all doing okay. Now, everything is still under investigation, but they believe driver impairment could have been involved. Now, as of right now, the westbound lanes here on I-80 are still blocked off, but they hope to have it open in just a couple of hours. Reporting live, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Thank you, Emily. Now to a developing story. Police in Sandy still investigating the murder of a woman at a shelter. Fox 13 News anchor Amy Nay talked to police about what happened.
Circumstances surrounding this death were suspicious.
Detectives with Sandy PD got an emergency call just before 5 p.m. Sunday about a death at what they call the MVP shelter for medically vulnerable persons on 90th South and 255 West.
As they began to gather more information, they felt very confident that this death was not an accident, and that there was some criminal elements that had taken place.
Sergeant Greg Moffitt with Sandy PD says they determined this to be murder. A probable cause statement identified the victim as 62-year-old Stephanie Lynn Hackett Carrasco, found under her bed. Detectives declared her dead on the scene from an injury consistent with blunt force trauma to the back of her head.
Obviously, there's some other issues that take place with those that are unhoused, whether it be addiction or mental health.
Sandy City Police arrested the victim's roommate, 60-year-old Laura Darlene Northup. She has now been booked into the Salt Lake County Jail charged with first-degree felony murder. Police say they are now trying to determine a motive as their investigation continues. I spoke with people who are close to those at the facility, and they say they knew these women had a history of contention, but never imagined it would turn violent.
This is really the first call that we've had of this nature at the MVP. And it is relatively new, and so we are still working through some of the growing pains.
But Sergeant Moffett says the shelter staff and local first responders have a good working relationship, and he says that's what helped lead to the quick arrest in this case, using cameras at the facilities to see when the roommates involved entered and left the room where they believe the homicide occurred.
I mean, it was less than 24 hours that we were able to get this case put together. So, and that was a direct result of the relationship that we've built with the MVP and the staff there. Sometimes we just have these random acts of violence, and you know, there's really no explanation as to why. So hopefully we can figure that out.
Reporting from Sandy, Amy Nay, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Several people were arrested early this morning after a SWAT incident in South Salt Lake was prompted by shots fired. Officials responded to the area of 300 East, 3600 South after callers reported shots had been fired at a large gathering. Residents were asked to avoid the area or stay inside their homes while crews responded. Police haven't exactly said what happened, whether anyone was injured, or how many people were arrested. They did say it was an isolated incident. A man was arrested yesterday after police say he randomly attacked people during Mass at the Cathedral of the Madeleine in Salt Lake City. According to police, 31-year-old Chandler Grillone walked into the cathedral carrying a bamboo sword, hitting two people with it, and then punching a third person, breaking their glasses. Father Martin Diaz, the pastor at the Cathedral of the Madeleine, tells Fox 13 News the suspect pushed a church staff member who had asked him to leave after they saw him sleeping on the floor. Police said Grillone resisted arrest during the incident. He's now being held in jail without bail. Back in February, more than a dozen headstones were vandalized at the historic Grantsville City Cemetery. Police were able to identify those responsible for the incident a week later, but it has now taken months to restore the damage that was done. Fox 13 News reporter Chris Arnold shows us how something good came out of a bad situation.
Welcome, everyone. We are so happy that you could be here with us.
With American flags waving in honor of Memorial Day, the Grantsville City Cemetery was filled with people visiting and placing flowers at the graves of their loved ones.
Her name was Louisa Jane Eastham, and she married Andrew Vickers Millward.
For the Millward family, it was a chance to come together.
I had 105 people respond. There were many people that were here that I knew had not responded to me.
Jill Millward Jushaw helped organize this reunion with her family, all centered around this covered up headstone. This is what that headstone looked like back in February, after several headstones were vandalized.
I just felt like, you know, I had to do it because it was my family.
Jason Millward is a sculpting instructor at Utah Valley University. He took it upon himself to work on restoring his family's headstone.
I think if I add up the hours, it comes out to about 3 weeks at full time. So everything has been carved down about 1/8 of an inch, trying to stay completely true to the original design, the original lettering, fonts.
The finished product unveiled Monday afternoon.
That was very rewarding. More rewarding than I thought it would have been.
While Millward helped restore his family's headstone, Grantsville Mayor Neil Critchlow tells me that they had someone from the state come out and do the same to the remaining headstones that were in need.
They only took a few $100s worth of materials to restore everything and put them back where they belong. That, and we gave us a chance to raise the basis and put them where they are.
While an act of vandalism damaged a piece of their family history, the Millwards found plenty of good through the process to get this headstone back in its place.
Now we have a reason to get back together, you know, person to person and meet each other again.
You can see behind me what the good is.
In Grantsville, Chris Arnold, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Good to see everyone out there enjoying that. There have been several Memorial Day gatherings in Utah today. One of the larger was the annual ceremony at Larkin Sunset Gardens in Sandy. Take a look. Dozens of people showed up on a picture-perfect day to honor military members who died while serving our country. Sergeant Major Richard Thalman of the Utah Army National Guard was one of the guest speakers. He spoke with Fox 13 News about how humbling it is to take part in ceremonies like this.
You can't help but to think about those that have served, especially those that I've served with, and friends that we've lost in service in war, and how impactful, but more for me, I think how grateful I am as not just an American citizen, but a service member as well.
I was at today's ceremony there at Larkin Sunset Gardens. It was phenomenal, and Congressman Blake Moore there as well, taking part in today's festivities and memorials. Love those brass bands. Another ceremony at the Utah State Capitol this morning. It included musical performances, a 21-gun salute, and remarks from Governor Spencer Cox and Utah Representative Celeste Malloy.
I thought it was a tremendous speech, and I was very impressed with the information they give us, how great Utah has been in participating in patriotism.
A wreath and flags were on display throughout the day to honor everyone who has served. One man decided to pay his respects to fallen veterans by holding an American flag above the overpass at I-215 and 2100 North today.
But because it brings up a lot of memories for me personally, but it's a day of respect and a day of remembering all those people that were just great Americans. All of them, every one of them, all over the world.
He is so right. Bob Fillmore there, who served in the Vietnam War, started his display around 7:30 this morning. He's 76 years old. He says he can't do this much longer, but he tells us he will continue to fly his flag as long as he can. Just a powerful sight there, Allison.
Yeah, I know. Are you guys trying to make me cry before I do the weather?
Oh, it's so many beautiful displays like that to thank the people who have made our country free and for us to celebrate a day like today. And it sure was a beautiful one in Utah.
For sure, the ultimate sacrifice. And I'm happy that our weather worked out, that today was such a nice day here across the state, as opposed to Saturday. Obviously, we want rain here in Utah, but it worked out great that we had the wet start to the weekend, and now we're having a dry end for the most part. 76 for Logan right now, 80 currently for Salt Lake, so we have hit that threshold into the 80s, 76 for Price, and 93 currently in St. George. We do have the chance for some gusty wind along with some isolated showers that have developed, some high bay showers for the mountains of southern and central Utah. Temps right now here across the state close to 80 for much of the state. And then as we look across southern Utah, we've had those showers mainly near and south of I-70, and then up towards Highway 6 we've had a few isolated showers as well. A little bit of lightning has developed in eastern Tooele County, but we're going to see a better chance for some isolated showers to make it into northern Utah for tomorrow. We'll have more what to expect through the rest of tonight and for tomorrow coming up in the full forecast.
Healthcare costs are becoming unaffordable for many people, and many insurance companies have new ways to minimize their costs, but it's leaving consumers facing unexpectedly high prescription bills. In a special consumer healthcare series this week, Fox 13 News consumer investigative reporter Robin Oginye dives into the concept of copay accumulators. Robin's live in studio to tell us about the second part of the series that airs tonight. Hi, Robin.
Hey, Kelly. Well, tonight you'll meet Penny Hepworth. She's a very sweet 11-year-old who has cystic fibrosis. She and her parents tell me she takes 20 pills a day. That includes different prescription medications, along with enzymes to help her digest her food, etc. The price for one of her medications, called Trikafta, is $26,000 a month. Without insurance and assistance from pharmaceutical companies, the cost per year for Trikafta and Penny's other medications would be around $500,000. Now, for a while, the Hepworths were getting assistance from the pharmaceutical company to pay for Penny's treatments, But that assistance eventually stopped. That's because of what's called a copay accumulator. A copay accumulator is when insurance companies and pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs, keep the copay assistance meant for a patient and use it for more profit. The assistance a patient would be receiving does not count toward their deductible or out-of-pocket cost.
That took us from a situation where we had medical expenses that we were able to more or less keep up to all right, how are we going to come up with this extra $10,000 for this year? And so we just started putting everything on credit cards because we can't not get the medication. There's not a cheaper version. There's not an alternative. There's nothing that we can do except to buy this medication so that our daughter can live.
I first met Penny's mom, Jen, during the 2023 legislative session. She was at the state capitol advocating for the Utah bill that would ban copay accumulators. The bill ultimately failed in 2023, as it did this year and other times in the past. So tonight at 9, you'll hear more of Penny's story, and I talked to other states to see exactly how they got their copay accumulator legislation passed. You'll want to hear what they have to say. Robin Oginye, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Looking forward to your story, Robin. Thanks so much. Still to come, former President Trump's hush money trial is set to wrap up this week. We'll break down what we can expect. And after a weekend of deadly storms and tornadoes, millions of people remain at risk this Memorial Day, with severe weather bearing down during the final days of May. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. President Biden spoke at the National Memorial Day observance at Arlington National Cemetery today. That ceremony recognizes fallen service members.
Freedom has never been guaranteed. Every generation has to earn it, fight for it, defend it in battle between autocracy and democracy, between the greed of a few and the rights of many. It matters. Our democracy is more than just a system of government. It's the very soul of America.
There was also a parade of colors by veterans organizations and a wreath-laying ceremony at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Closing arguments will begin tomorrow in former President Donald Trump's hush money trial. The defense will begin the arguments, followed by prosecutors who must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Trump falsified business records to cover up a sexual encounter with adult film star Stormy Daniels. Trump's lawyers only need to create some doubt in the jurors' minds to get an acquittal. After closing arguments, the jury will get the case. The verdict must be unanimous, with all 12 in agreement. If one juror holds out during deliberations, it will create a deadlock or potentially trigger a mistrial. Israel says there was a tragic misstrike after its military launched an airstrike that killed dozens of Palestinians in Rafah. The strike at a camp for displaced people on Sunday killed at least 45 and injured dozens more. Video you're seeing here from the scene showed widespread destruction at a camp, with a large fire overtaking the area. The attack came hours after Hamas fired rockets at Tel Aviv for the first time in 9 months. People from Missouri to Kentucky to Virginia are dealing with the threat of damaging weather today. Storms are part of the same system that caused destruction over the weekend. At least 22 people were killed. Hundreds were injured across the central U.S. Some of the most severe weather hit in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. More than 200 homes and structures were destroyed in the Lone Star State alone. 8 people died in Arkansas. So tough looking at that video, just the destruction that those storms came with, and it's not done. And here we are on a day where so many people are with loved ones or out celebrating, and you look at what some people in our country are dealing with.
Certainly, and come tomorrow night, the possibility of more severe weather overnight. So that is typically even deadlier if people are going to be sleeping and perhaps not getting into their safe space when a storm does roll through, getting into their basement or otherwise. So that's going to be a concern. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Let's talk about us here in Utah. We have had a hot holiday. It's going to be even hotter for tomorrow. Isolated storms with some strong wind are possible. We've seen some high bay showers across the southern mountains today, but everything pretty much has stayed below 40 miles per hour. But we're going to have a chance for those storms to pull a little further north for tomorrow. And then we've got a cold front that's going to be moving through late in the day on Wednesday. But over the last 7 days, we've been back and forth in the 60s and 70s. Today, we've popped into the 80s. And we're going to be between the 80s and 70s now from here on out for our 7-day forecast. Our national weather right now, 80 in Salt Lake, 101 in Phoenix, 91 for New Orleans, 86 for Memphis, into the 60s for New York City on this Memorial Day. For the rest of this holiday in Salt Lake, mostly clear, a warm morning tomorrow with a clear start, a hot day with some increasing clouds and the possibility of some isolated thunderstorms. But temperatures tomorrow could be our hottest day so far this year. And we're going to be about 5 to 10 degrees above average for tomorrow. So as we look at our current temps on this Memorial Day, anything that you've got planned for tonight, mainly good weather here along the Wasatch Front. Low 60s even for Alta with snow along the highest terrain still. 75 for Tooele, 79 for Ogden. Guardsman Pass is back open, but the trails are still closed at the top like Bloods Lake. Still too much snow for those trailheads to be open. As we look at our temperatures over the next couple of days, we're going to see a lot of heat for the most part. As I mentioned, we've seen some storms that are mainly along the higher terrain for the mountains of southern Utah from about Highway 6 further south. And where we're going to see the possibility for that tomorrow, we'll bring that even into central and northern Utah for the chance for some isolated storms. For Salt Lake, next couple of hours in the 70s, and then by 10 o'clock tonight, we're dropping into the 60s. Tomorrow morning, we're looking at 50s and 60s as you wake up for your Tuesday morning, head back to work tomorrow. Kids are off on summer break and it's going to feel summer-like for sure. Temperatures in the mid to upper 80s as we heat up and see some increasing clouds. St. George tomorrow into the mid 90s, so the hot weather does continue. And as we look at our forecast throughout the day for Tuesday here in Utah, we're going to have the chance for some isolated storms. But as I mentioned, tomorrow night into Wednesday morning, possibly some very strong storms. Look at this, Wednesday, 1:30 a.m. into eastern Texas. St. George 95 tomorrow, 96 on Wednesday, close to 100 degrees on Thursday and Friday. For Salt Lake, we'll see a cool down with our cold front arriving late in the day on Wednesday, bringing us into the 70s for Thursday and Friday, back into the 80s for this weekend.
Thanks, Allison. Walmart and Capital One are ending their partnership on consumer credit cards. We'll tell you what it means for people who have that card and for the rewards they've accumulated. That's coming up. As people prepare to get back to normal or back to their routine after a long holiday weekend, numbers are showing a record weekend for travel. The TSA says it screened a record number of people on Friday. The agency screened more than 2.9 million people at checkpoints nationwide. That surpassed its previous record from November 26th of last year, which was over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend. And the agency also noted that the 5 of the top 10 busiest travel days in history have occurred this year alone. Pretty impressive. Capital One and Walmart now parting ways. The companies have announced the deal that made Capital One the exclusive issuer of Walmart consumer credit cards. It's ended. Nothing, however, will change for customers. You can still use your card to earn and redeem rewards. Walmart says it will send cardholders some more information in the next few months. The first medication approved for postpartum depression is proving to be effective. Last year, the FDA approved Zuralan as the first oral medication for postpartum depression. In trials, women who received the drug showed significant improvements in symptoms. Despite the potential benefits, some psychiatrists say patients have been hesitant to take the pill because it's so new and has side effects. It can cause drowsiness, dizziness, diarrhea, and fatigue. Meat from a dairy cow that tested positive for H5N1 bird flu virus did not enter the food supply. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said the viral particles of the virus were discovered during a standard part of the inspection process. Officials contacted the owners of the cow in question, and a probe into the herd where the bovine came from is now underway. Samples from dozens of other cows that were condemned for illness tested negative Additional testing is underway. Coming up, hear from the widow of a World War II pilot who survived being shot down over Japan. Fox 13 News anchor Bob Evans shares the incredible story next. Plus, meet one of the competitors representing Utah in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. And remembering an NBA Hall of Famer, we take a look back at the life and legacy of Bill Walton in Fox 13 Sports.
I'm Fox 13 News anchor Bob Evans. Helen Jo Stoddard has seen 101 Memorial Days, and to her, each one has been sweet. She loves this country very much. Helen's late husband, Loren, was a B-24 pilot who was shot down on May 29, 1944, about 50 miles off the coast of Saipan. This is the story of what happened to him.
16 months he was missing in action.
That must have been terrifying for you.
It was terrible.
Nothing but a short telegram saying Captain Loren Stoddard and his crew were missing in action. Naturally, anyone would think the worst. But not Helen Jo.
My patriarchal blessing, and you know what those are. On the very last line said that if I'd married a good man, that I would have a family.
And you had no children at that point?
No. And that was it.
And that's what kept you going?
That's what kept me going. And I thought, well, he's a very good man.
Captain Stoddard and his crew were part of a bombing and reconnaissance mission over Saipan, and were headed home when one of their group lost an engine and started to fall behind. Captain Stoddard surveyed his crew, and to a man they determined to stay with the crippled aircraft to provide cover, knowing they too would be in grave danger. And sure enough, a Japanese Zero fired on Loren's plane, starting a fire in the left wing, sending the crew down to the Pacific. Oh, here.
Oh, that's where he shot down.
Yeah, now these are actual pictures of him being shot down. Extremely rare pictures. 6 of his crew were killed in that crash, but Loren and 3 others survived.
And he was thrown out of his airplane. I mean, that meant the seat that he was bolted to the floor in the airplane. He went right through the glass in the window.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Coming to his senses, he found himself underwater, desperate for air.
He just said, Lord, I need help. And he says he bumped his head on this life raft that had come out of the airplane. And so he got in the life raft and fell over on his airplane, and it was full of gasoline and it was on fire. And he says, jump. He says, I can't. He says, jump. And so he jumped and got him in the life raft.
The 4 men were captured by the Japanese.
And it was interesting because the Japanese had graduated, spoke good English, graduated from the University of California.
And sent to a prisoner of war camp in Yokohama.
Don't look up.
As it turned out, it was the same prisoner of war camp in which 1936 Olympic athlete Louis Zamperini, who had joined the war effort, was confined and tortured, as depicted in the movie Unbroken. It wasn't until August the next year, when the atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that all the POWs were finally set free, and word filtered back that Loren was alive. Only 112 pounds, but alive.
And when they did find him, well, they took him to the Philippines for a month, and we didn't know that. And they took him there to fatten him up.
Finally, Loren's brother called Helen Jo.
And he called me and he says, Loren just called me from San Francisco, and he says, come and pick me up.
She had always known it would happen.
He came in and he looked around, and of course we had hugs and kisses and so forth. And then he looked around and he says, where's Aaron? And his brother had been killed in the Battle of the Bulge.
As a consequence of time, the echoes of America's greatest generation are beginning to fade. But Helen Jo's voice remains strong, a warning for all of us.
They just take America for granted and the government for granted, and just don't realize what freedom really is.
What it costs.
Yeah, the lives.
It almost cost you your husband.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Now, I can't tell you how sorry I am that we don't have enough time to share more from Helen Jo Stoddard. She is such a delight, as you can see. She'll turn 102 on Halloween this year. But to give you a brief glimpse, a little bit more into her personality, take a look at this.
You're 101.
And a half.
And a half.
Because I'm still going.
Right?
Oh, we've got some.
You are the oldest person I know who still counts in half years. What's up with that?
Well, when you get this old, every month counts.
See what I mean? Delightful. And I couldn't even scratch the surface on how her late husband, Loren, was such an American hero there at Pearl Harbor before being shot down, and how he stayed in contact with his surviving crew members, or how the crew of the plane they were flying cover for and actually made it back to base met every year and considered Loren Stoddard the hero who saved their lives. Maybe on this Memorial Day, we can all reflect on Loren Stoddard and the countless others like him who saved the world from tyranny back then and continue to do so today. In studio, Bob Evans, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Such history there. What a story. Today at Ogden Union Station, there was a touching display honoring those who have made the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedom. The nonprofit Operation Hero lined up hundreds of military boots, each one representing a fallen soldier. Each boot has the American flag, the branch they served in, and a tag with their picture and the day they passed away.
Very healing. It's therapeutic. There's a lot of times I'll come in and just stand. They each deserve our respect. Their families deserve our respect.
The group is entirely volunteer driven, and their mission is to support families of fallen soldiers. If you would like to learn more, you can visit their website, operationheroes.org, or you can message them on Facebook. American Fork firefighters took part in a different act of service for the community this Memorial Day. Dozens of firefighters and their families spent the morning cooking pancakes, eggs, hash browns, and sausage right there at Station 51. Since 1958, they have hosted this Memorial Day breakfast almost every year to raise money for the department. They also do it for the veterans to thank them for their service and give them the chance to connect with others who have fought for our freedom.
It kind of brings them back to their time of service, honestly. It's a way of kind of being able to touch back to those memories, and they get to meet other fellow veterans that come out today. Veterans that come to this event eat for free. It's a way to support them and, thank them for what they've done.
More than 2,000 people came out to this year's breakfast. A Veterans Memorial in Nephi is looking a lot different this holiday. That's because of a volunteer effort that's cleaned up and refurbished the monuments. Tarina Mickey started the project almost by accident after visiting the Nephi Memorial last year with her boyfriend. He showed her that both his father and grandfather's names were on the memorial. However, he was disappointed there was no paint on their names. Mickey told him she knew how to paint the names back on. She then decided to restore the paint on all the names there on the memorial. An Air Force veteran herself, Mickey says this has turned into the most worthwhile mission of her life.
We're just finishing up, and we've just got the hard water to remove, and through everybody's work, we've been able to do over the 2,700 plus names on this memorial.
Oh my goodness, it looks fantastic. Mickey currently works as a long-haul truck driver and typically spends more than 100 hours a week on the road. So she's been doing this in her spare time. But she says so many people have come together to donate not only their time, but also many of the cleaning materials needed to finish the job.
Memorial Day means Bear Lake is open for business. And by Bear Lake, I don't mean Bear Lake.
And coming up, temperatures today warming up, tomorrow even hotter. The timing of the cold front this week in the forecast.
I'm Andrea Irvin, and coming up in sports, I will introduce you to a Utahn who has found himself being inducted into the U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame. And rest in peace to an NBA Hall of Famer, announcer, and just a legend, Bill Walton, who has passed away after his battle with cancer. We'll be right back.
Well, this is pretty cool. Utah will be represented by 4 students in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Fox 13 News recently traveled to Price to meet one of those competitors. Her name is Katie Heaton. This speller is currently in the 8th grade and she attends Mount Harmon Middle School. We asked her what was the words that she spelled correctly to advance to the national competition in Washington, D.C.
My winning word was disjunct. D-I-S-J-U-N-C-T. Disjunct. The thing I like most about the whole spelling bee thing is actually the competition. I like getting up there and kind of performing.
That's right. That's a good way to look at it. Performing by spelling. Not easy to do. Katie's future is looking bright. She wishes to pursue a career in astrophysics or astronomy. More than 200 spellers are already in Maryland getting ready for the competition this week. The semifinals kick off Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by the finals on Thursday. You can watch to find out the new champion and test your own spelling schools by tuning in to the ION Network starting this week at 8. You can also now get a raspberry shake any day of the week in Garden City as Memorial Day opens up the summer season at Bear Lake. But as Fox 13 News reporter Brian Champagne explains, there's more to do there now, but that can make it harder to keep employers around.
This is the beginning of our season.
Boats are launching into the blue water of Bear Lake, which is almost full this year.
Got all the businesses open up and going.
It is a beautiful day for boating at Bear Lake, but a lot of us don't own boats. So Garden City added pickleball courts. They're working on ball diamonds, and there are miles of trails.
Biking trails, walking trails. We have tons of trails for side-by-sides, four-wheelers.
The extras are drawing more people for standards like
3 small raspberry shakes,
but make it tough for the people who make the shakes to stay here.
A lot of these places are short-term rentals, so they rent from September to about May full-time, and then in May you have to kind of move out.
For you. Thank you. Thank you.
So it makes it difficult to have housing for employees.
We have girls housing, and they stay in a separate place, and then we have housing for our boys, and then they stay in a separate place. And so we have to house most of our workers just due to the size of Garden City.
It's one of the things that as a city we're trying to look at to see if we can alleviate some of that problem.
I love the small town vibe of Bear Lake. I don't love it changing too much, but when there's good stuff like this happening, I think it's a good thing.
We want people to come here and have a variety of things to do to enjoy being here.
Brian Champagne, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Well, with temperatures like today and tomorrow, I know a lot of you are wondering about, how long is this going to last? Just slightly above average today, 80 degrees so far. Tomorrow it'll be about 10 degrees above normal. So we're into that time of year when things are consistently getting warmer. A record for today, 93 degrees, set back in the 50s. And for tomorrow, we're going to have the chance for some isolated storms, mainly for the mountains of central into northern Utah, but we'll have the possibility for an isolated chance even here along the Wasatch Front, with a little better of a chance heading into Wednesday as a cold front moves through. And then by Thursday, northern Utah will see a few clouds. Temperatures are going to be warming up again this weekend. And then by Thursday, might even still see some lingering isolated showers for the mountains of southern Utah, but just not that great of a chance to getting into the second half of the week. Satellite and radar here across Utah for today, where we're currently seeing some storm activity. We've seen some showers, high bay showers, mainly for the mountains of central Utah. all the way up towards about Highway 6. And then as we look at our hour-by-hour forecast, 10 o'clock tonight, temperatures still close to 70 degrees as you get ready for bed. A mild start tomorrow morning, near 60 for the Wasatch Front, but we will drop into the 40s for areas like Evanston, Park City, and the Cache Valley. And for Vernal tomorrow morning, 54, 65 for St. George first thing tomorrow morning, with temperatures rising into the 80s here across the state, possibly even to the upper 80s here along the Wasatch Front. For Ogden, you're going to see a chance for some isolated showers on Wednesday as our next cold front moves through, but we're really not going to drop that much, just back into the mid-70s for Thursday. For Provo, your chance of precipitation isolated tomorrow. By Wednesday, widely scattered storms are possible. For St. George, you have a dry 7-day forecast, and as we go ahead and look up towards the Cache Valley, Logan, isolated chances, very low chances Tuesday. By Wednesday, widely scattered chances return back to some isolated chances possible late in the weekend. So how much precipitation are we talking about over the next 48 hours? Really not a whole lot, less than 1/10 of an inch for any areas that see showers. The main threat with our storms the next few days could possibly be some dry microbursts and also the possibility of some dry lightning. So we'll want to keep our eye on that. As we look at temperatures for St. George, you are flirting with 100 degrees come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we've got a hot weekend ahead of us, a hot several days ahead of us for St. George and for Salt Lake. We're close to 85 to 90 for the next few days. By Thursday, we drop into the mid-70s, and then we are back into the 80s for this weekend. We'll keep things breezy for you Wednesday and Thursday.
Two-time NBA champion and Hall of Famer Bill Walton passed away today at age 71 following a prolonged battle with cancer. He capped off his career with a title with the Boston Celtics in 1986. Before entering the NBA, he won consecutive titles in 1972 and 73 with the UCLA Bruins. He later then had his number retired by the university. Walton was also famous for his unique and often quirky commentary as a broadcaster and his love for the band The Grateful Dead. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver issued a statement reacting to Walton's passing, saying, quote, Bill Walton was truly one of a kind as a Hall of Fame player. He redefined the center position. His unique all-around skills made him a dominant force. As a cherished member of the NBA family for 50 years, Bill will be deeply missed by all those who came to know and love him. My heartfelt condolences to Bill's wife, Lori, his sons, Adam, Nate, Luke, and Chris, and many friends and colleagues. And now some coaches come into your life and leave a lasting impression, and that was Larry Gelwicks for many young men, coaching Highland High School varsity rugby for 36 years, recording a record of 418 wins and 10 losses. Larry is being inducted into the U.S. Rugby Hall of Fame, and I sat down with him to reflect on an amazing career.
At Highland Rugby, it wasn't just about rugby.
I told the school I'll teach 1 year. Initially, I didn't think I would live here, and I just fell in love with the sport.
And they were coming from Coach Gelwicks.
After a playing career at BYU, Larry Gelwicks accepted a teaching job at Highland High School. Little did he know what lied ahead.
This was the 1975-76 school year, so I thought, you know what, every young man needs to play rugby. So we organized a team with the first high school rugby team in Utah.
We got a lot of work to do, a lot of work. And now is the time that we can't start coasting.
We did a varsity record 418 wins and just 10 losses, including 20 national championships in 36 years.
NFL players like Haloti Ngata, Stuart Bradley, and even Utah defensive coordinator Morgan Scalley came through the Highland Rugby program.
I have never had a player with the drive to win like Morgan Scalley. In 1998, there was a sanctioned World High School Tournament, and we represented the United States. Morgan catches it on the burst. He makes a dive, as you see football players now doing. That's a rugby move. He scores it, which is 5 points. The conversion is 2. There's your 7. We win the game 25-24 with no time remaining. That was a great memory.
One of many memories that resulted in a phone call 13 years after his retirement.
I get a phone call from USA Rugby Foundation advising me that I'm being inducted, and I was overwhelmed. And I literally teared up.
A Hall of Fame award that can be celebrated through decades.
I'm grateful to Highland High School and grateful to all the people who contribute. And for me, it is a shared award that'll have my name on it, but I know that there's over 3,000 boys' names that in my heart will always be on that Hall of Fame. Absolutely. And coaches and parents.
Absolutely. Congratulations, Larry. That'll do it for sports. We'll be right back.
Looks like the rest of the evening is going to be very nice for everyone.
Yeah, for the most part, especially here in northern Utah. Yeah.
Well, enjoy it, everyone. Thank you for watching. And we'll be back here tonight for Fox 13 News.
Yes, ma'am.
At 9. See you then.